Hello, everybody. Welcome in. It is
Front Office Friday.
Let's Go Front Office Friday. We are here live a little bit later than our usual time slot, but live nonetheless to talk NBA basketball. We'll talk playoffs. We'll talk free agency. We'll talk the trade market, everything going on in the world of the NBA. Plenty to get into. Keith, we got a later start today. I had to go to an event at my daughter's school that involved me manning the snow cone machine. Somehow I made it out not completely covered in snow cone syrup. So I count that as a win.
That's a huge win, man. Honestly, that's as big as any playoff win you're gonna get. Just not being ruined clothes and stained skin and everything else. I came out a few years ago. I had to run the cotton candy machine, and like it felt like I was sticky for months. Like I was in the
Mm.
shower for a solid hour after, and still like picking like bits of that sugary crap out of my hair, and just
Oh man.
it was bad. It was bad. I also was not very good at it either. So
Well, you
it'll be
got it much worse than I did. But the bottom line on the upside is that it's delicious.
that's
But
true.
yes, somehow we made it through.
That
We
is
made it
true.
through. Oh, well, we've got a lot going on, obviously, in the world of the NBA right now. We've got plenty of buzz about free agency already. I guess let's just start, yeah, and plenty to talk about the playoffs as well. But Keith, the James Harden to Houston buzz is just getting more and more louder. I guess we saw the piece from Keith Pompey that said, like he's hearing it's going to happen. Like Harden,
Yeah.
it feels like every day it's more of a certainty that James Harden is going to Houston. Is there just so much smoke here that we gotta assume there's fire?
I think so, right? I mean, anytime my opinion on this, anytime we hear this stuff months out and then it doesn't go away. If we heard it once and then like didn't really hear it again, it kind of went away. It was like, all right, well, there's probably something to that, but then it just was gone. Now it's been I mean, we've been hearing this since December, January. Like
Mhm.
we're, months later, still roughly a month and a half ish out from the start of free agency. So yeah, we're full on into the time where I think we take this serious now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's looking more and more like this is going to happen. What is, a lot of people. We spent a lot of time talking about Houston, and okay, what does Houston do? Do they cash in some of the young assets? What do they do with their pick? You can't really just put James Harden on a team full of young players and then use your pick on somebody young too and expect it all to work out. No, you're going to have to make some trades and moves and things like that. What does Philly do? What does Philly do if James Harden just walks away?
Yeah,
And I know we looked at it and said, well, they gave up Ben Simmons, and we all know how that's going in Brooklyn. But now, if James Harden just walks away, what do you do?
yeah. I think the first thing you try to do, especially if it's to Houston, and assuming it's for straight out cap space, you try and incent them to make it a sign and trade, right? Offer them a
Hmm.
second round pick or two to do nothing different than what they're going to do anyway. Now, there's bad blood between Tillman Fertitta and Daryl Morey, so that may not fly. But that's just holding a grudge to hold a grudge's sake, right?
Hmm.
So I would, hey, if I can get a second round pick or, second round pick and a, kid off the roster or something, I don't know, like let's just make it into a sign and trade and move along with that. So that would be the first step. And then that would give you, obviously the largest trade exception in NBA history that you would be able to use a chunk of at least to replace James Harden or flesh out your depth with a couple other players or something like that. So that would be the first step. Other than that, you, I mean, I've seen people say, well, then you got to trade Tobias Harris, right, to rework it, and it's like now you start feeling like you're kind of throwing good money after bad a little bit, where
Hmm.
it's like you can't really replace him, right? You're going to lose the salary slot. That's the main thing. You're just trying to retain that salary slot as best you can. So I think you end up in a spot where it is, all right, you know what? It kind of is what it is. And we, if he goes, we just ride it out. A year from now, the books will clean up a good amount, right? It'll be Joel Embiid,
Hmm.
Tyrese Maxey on a new deal. And that's about it. I guess one more year, PJ Tucker, but you're in pretty good shape at that point. So that's what, that's what I would do. Just ride it out as best you can.
I wonder how Embiid would feel about that, though. Essentially, you're essentially saying just wait until the end of next season,
Yeah.
and you're telling Embiid, who just won the MVP, hey, we're just going to kind of tread water for a year, and if you can hang on for another year, then maybe we can do something. I don't
Yeah.
I mean, how does he respond to that after a season when they were, I mean, frankly expected to try to make a push to the Eastern Conference Finals?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's hard, right? Because you would hope that he would get it, but also, I mean, this guy's gonna be looking at me like, wait, we're gonna throw a year of my prime away
Right.
coming off an MVP. So yeah, I think they're in a spot where you probably do just kind of hold out a little bit, right? And you say, hey, no, come on, fix it, like go get something. So that's why, again, I think you do what you can to try to turn it into a sign and trade and make it something good so you can have it on both sides there. Right, we lost him, but we can get something to try and replace them. Maybe try to make it into a 3-team deal where you could bring some salary back in direct from another team that's like, we've got some salary we want to get off of. So I'll say this. Harden is 1A, depending on how you feel about Kyrie Irving, of free agents that we can reasonably expect to change teams this summer. I don't think Kyrie's leaving Dallas. I think he'll probably stay there.
Agreed.
But it's Kyrie, so who knows? But I think we're going to see major movement via trade this summer. I'm not going to go as far as like we did a year ago and call it the summer of the trade, because there are some teams with cap space. But I think the new CBA and the restrictions against these teams with being super expensive, I think we're going to see a bunch of these teams start making moves to basically say, hey, we've got to kind of get things in balance here and line stuff up, and that's going to lead to, I think, a handful of trades that we aren't necessarily expecting.
Keith, I can tell you right now, a massive trade is going to go down on July 6th.
Okay.
July 6th. Mark your calendars, everyone. I'm telling you right now.
Is that your travel day?
This is happening. That is my travel day to Las Vegas for NBA Summer League. So that's
it.
how I know. I'm sure Adam Silver, the powers that be in the NBA, general managers around the league, they wait until I go wheels up on that plane, then they pull the trigger, because that's how it always seems to work. So July 6th,
true.
That's when it's going to happen. By the way, just quick plug for Summer League. If you have not been, go. It's a ton of fun. It's a blast. I can't wait for it. Less than 2 months. Counting down. As much fun as the NBA playoffs have been and all that. Summer League coming up in
Did you
in
see
July.
the thing that they announced yesterday?
No, what was it?
How they're calling it, I gotta find it now. It's like NBA Con or something like that. And it's gosh, I wish I could find it now. But it's basically like we always call it NBA Comic Con. Like they're really launching like a con portion of Summer League. And it's going to be at one of the hotels. And I can't remember who tweeted it now. Maybe it was the NBA's official account. I don't know. I know I retweeted. Here it is. The NBA today announced that NBA Con, a first of its kind event that blends the interests of NBA players and fans into a celebration of the best of hoops culture, will debut at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas from July 7th through 9th. So in conjunction with that first few days of Summer League. So that's on my Twitter. I'll retweet it again.
Well, they know.
In case anybody wants to grab it now.
They know. I mean, Summer League is going to be flooded, assuming, I mean, I guess, does Wembanyama play?
So I asked a couple people about that this week, and their take was, let's see when his season wraps up over in Europe, right? Because if his season is wrapped up in advance, there's a chance you might see him come out and play like a game, maybe two. I don't know.
Like Zion.
I think he was also named to France's provisional roster for the World Cup this summer. So I don't know that we're going to see him finish his European season, play in Summer League, and play in the World Cup. Sorry, the dog is going crazy, so I'm going to mute for a second.
All good. I've got a question here coming in from Alan, who said, Trevor, who would you want to pay more, Rui Hachimura or Austin Reeves? And so I'll address that while Keith is dealing with the dog there. So I guess there's two ways to look at this. Who would you want to pay more? Like, who would you want to give more money to? Or who would, if you had to pick one of them, who would you rather pay? Which is,
I'm guessing it's pick one of them.
Pick one of them. That's probably what we're saying too. And I would lean towards Austin Reeves. Rui Hachimura obviously has done some really good things for the Lakers, but I think the great thing is they don't have to make the decision of which one they want to keep. They could keep both of them, and in fact, they're in the driver's seat to keep both guys. So we'll see what ultimately they do. But I would pick Reeves if you told me, hey, you can only choose one of these two players.
Yeah, I would pick Reeves too. I think I do think they're going to be pressed to keep them both, though, because they're the chances of Reeves signing the team friendly extension that's gone. Like that's not going to happen now. Like
Sure.
that's out the window. Like he's going to get paid major money. He's just been way too good throughout the course of these playoffs. So they're going to have to match a pretty big offer sheet. And honestly, if you're the Lakers, it's probably going to be the way it goes because they're limited in how much they can offer him directly
Yes.
in a contract, but they can match any kind of offer sheet he gets. So what's going to happen is he's probably going to get a pretty good sized offer sheet, and that's going to be the way the Lakers have to pay him is if they match on it. Now with Rui Hachimura, it's similar-ish boat, but they have his bird right, so they could strike early with him. And you got to be really careful on Rui Hachimura because the games that have been good have been really, really good. But there's also been a whole bunch of games, even in this playoff run, we didn't even know he was out there, right?
Well, he
So
wasn't out there, especially in the Golden State series.
a
He
handful of
didn't.
those
He
years,
wasn't a
yep,
fit.
those two. So that's the other part of it, right? So people went a little two parts, right? People went bananas over 6 possessions at the end of game one. It was like, all right, we
Oh,
get
that the Nuggets went bananas over that. They were
sure,
the only ones
but
running around screaming, "It's still complaining." Mike Malone, what a clown!
but
That guy
I
was
more
losing
was
his mind.
I was more on the, that like a lot of national people started tweeting about like, oh, I don't know, maybe they found something here. And it's
But
like, I mean,
but
maybe
that's just it. But
when
here's the leap
wait,
they were taking was everybody was saying maybe they found something. The Nuggets took that and went to the series is over. The Lakers just figured them out. And
yeah.
so it's like we were here and they went 10 miles down the road and then got offended. I mean, it was
Yeah.
bizarre
I mean, I
behavior from
think
them.
there's a lot of gamesmanship and nonsense in that too.
Oh yeah,
But
it was very
I,
much firing up his team, I'm sure.
I just, for me, it was like that. It's the same thing with he had that, right? It was the Grizzlies game where he had the monster game against the Grizzlies, and people were like, you got to pay this guy whatever he wants. It's like, whoa, like that,
Oh yeah, yeah.
that goes sideways real quick when we
You
start
can.
paying guys off of, a couple playoff games or even one playoff run. There's been, countless stories of that. Jerome Jordan, anybody
Yeah,
remember back in the day?
wasn't it Jerome James? Is that his
Jerome
name?
Jerome Jordan, one of the two. Yeah,
But
Jerome
for the
James. I think
Sonics.
you're right. From the Sonics, yeah. The
Yes,
Knicks
yeah,
gave him
yeah.
a monster for the time.
That's
What
the
was
one
a
I was
monster
one that was in
contract?
my head.
Yeah,
I'm like, I wonder
you're
if
right. It's
Keith
Jerome
thinks of the
James.
same guy.
Yeah, yep, yeah. And it's just so yeah. So we don't pay people off of one crazy
Right.
playoff run. So so my guess is if they had to pick, it's probably Reeves over Hachimura, and then you move on. But to your point, they don't have to, right? It could get unreasonably expensive to keep them both. But that's I don't know. You know my feelings on this. I don't like when the Lakers, and I'll throw the Celtics in there too. Don't cry poor mouth to me. You're two of
Sure.
the most wealthy franchises in the league. Just go, right? Like just go, and this is pay these guys. You're gonna make it back as long as you're a decent team. Like just be don't cheap out because it's money. You can't give me that. Now you can give me a little bit of hey, it might make it real hard to build a team in a couple years, but let's worry about a couple years in a couple years, right?
And I think that now it's going to be more, and this is perhaps why ownership like this in the CBA is now you can make the argument that it's strategic. It's not,
Mhm.
oh, we don't want to pay. It's we want to have access to the taxpayer mid level. We want to be able to make trades and not have the kind of financial restrictions that the super tax would place upon it. So teams can now lean on that too, and rightfully so. I mean, it's part of the reason why those rules are around. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. And the Lakers are one of those teams that are going to have to keep an eye on it, but many other teams are as well. So that's going to be a new dynamic that we're going to be looking at this summer.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a major thing, and it's kind of this is the sort of kind of grace period year for a bunch of people to kind of get yourselves in order, and that's going to be where it is. And it's the reality. These rules are designed to put teams in positions to lose good players, right? So
Mhm.
we balance and spread that talent amongst the league, and that's the decision. It's not. I mean, this is one we're talking about. This one direct right now, but there's a ton of these types of decisions that are going to have to be made, all around the NBA. I mean, Boston's going to have to face one with Grant Williams, right? Like can we
Sure.
keep him, and how much can we pay him? And is that going to be unreasonable, knowing we're probably going to be paying Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, $100 million here in a couple years between the two of them. So, but that's what this new CBA is designed to do. If you want to keep your guys, you can. Nothing will stop you from doing that, but that's your choice, and then you're stuck in other ways.
Isham 976. It sounds like Pistons owner Tom Gores is happy with any of the three, or isn't happy. He added in
He
later
corrected
with
it,
any
yes.
of the three potential coaches we've been hearing about. Who's left?
Yeah, there was a rumor out there that had they won the lottery, that they were going to push hard. They believe it was Monty Williams. They said they were
Mhm.
going to make a real run at. They clearly didn't, right? They clearly didn't win the
They went the
lottery.
other
So
way.
it went the other way, as bad as it could go, and dropped 4 places. So yeah, I'm not sure where this heads now. I kind of thought it was going to be Kevin Ollie.
I did too.
That was just what I felt like. He's had experience with building young teams, both at the collegiate level and now with Overtime Elite. So but yeah, it's a little surprising me that we're still here. But lottery's behind them now. Now it's there's nothing's going to change at this point for them. So let's see. Maybe if things fall through for Monty Williams, maybe he is willing to take on a team that's trying to build back up. So so we'll see.
I will say, I think that this offseason, to me anyway, it feels like there's more coaching talent available than there are landing spots for them.
Sure.
Um, so I think that you can be a little bit more selective than in some other off seasons. Not every off
Like
season,
that.
obviously, because each one has kind of its own personality and everything. But it does feel like there's a number of coaches out there that maybe wouldn't typically be available. So maybe the Pistons can, not rush into anything necessarily. If the person they don't necessarily love is right there, it might just be that they need to wait for the music to stop and see who's left standing and then take your pick. That could be the option for them if they don't have somebody that they love ready to sign up right this minute.
Yeah, that could absolutely be. The way this goes is there's no reason to rush. You want to get it done ideally before the draft, because you want your coach, not that the coach should be making the draft picks or making your free agent decisions, but you at least want them involved, right, in the discussion points. So you're kind of on about a month or so here to get that done. Probably ideally, let's get it done in the next couple weeks so those guys can be in the draft workouts and in the conversations and all that stuff leading up to it. But yeah, that's where I think it's headed. Hey, I want to go to one. I'm going to go to one real quick before we get
go ahead.
back there.
Yep.
But it was Austin asked, I assume he's Lakers, because he says, can we somehow get Tyus Jones and not sign D'Lo? You're not going to get Tyus Jones with the John Morant uncertainty. Like,
Right.
It's I'd be shocked if the Grizzlies traded Tyus Jones. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. Tyus Jones, for my money, is the best backup point guard in the league, because he's great in that role, and he can also start for you, and you don't really miss too much when he's out there as a starter. So I think they're gonna have to get another point guard now. That to me becomes a major priority for them, because I think John Morant, I'm guessing it's gonna be in the range of a 20-game suspension.
That's what I'm thinking
that he gets. So
did you see Nike pulled his shoe?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is
Yep.
this is
So
going to
that's
be a
not great.
big thing for him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any timeline in terms of when the NBA is going to make a decision on this, but I agree, when it comes down, I think we're easily into the double digits in terms of games suspended.
Yep. And then somebody asked, I'll just answer this one very quick, from Alexander, asked, how likely is it Al Horford leaves the Celtics? He's signed an extension earlier this year, so I don't think there's any chance he's going anywhere.
All right, let's dive into this one. Vector Nova said, hey guys, if I understand the new CBA rules correctly, which I may not, would you guys say the new rules place more emphasis on drafting because of cost-controlled contracts on drafted players? I would say yes. It's not entirely on drafting, but in general, yes, I think it becomes more beneficial to have players on cost-controlled contracts, particularly now, and that's if you're a team that's seeing salaries creep up. If you can get a player where you get a guy that you're going to pay $7 million starting or something like that, and they're a playable guy, somebody that you're going to put into your rotation, that can become very valuable over giving a guy having that role cost you $20 million or something like that for a high level role player. So that's where it comes into play. High level drafting is important. You've got to find success there. But in general, yes, I think it does place more emphasis on drafting players and doing well in the draft.
Yeah, I think that's where, Warriors, Clippers, Celtics, Bucks, Suns, Lakers, like they're going to have to nail these draft picks that'll be coming for some of them in the middle of the first round. But for a lot of them, if this season, not this season, but future seasons go, generally, if you're really expensive, generally correlates to being pretty good. So then that turns into a spot where it is, all right, you're drafting in the 20s, but you got to nail those picks in the 20s because that's how you're going to be one of the only ways you can replenish your talent pipeline is draft picks and then minimum signings because they're going to be limited to no exceptions to use moving forward in the years down the line if you're that expensive because you're just not going to be in that position. So yeah, I think the draft becomes very, very important. I'll also say too, I think you're going to see some teams probably less willing to trade draft picks if they're going to be super expensive down the line. Now we also know like there's going to be this whole thing where with frozen picks, several years out and those kind of things. So yeah, we're a lot of stuff to come with this. This is going to probably be about a 2 to 3 year kind of window of, teams figuring it out, what this new world looks like. And that's, kind of the intention of this too.
Keith, you said frozen picks, and the first thing I thought of was Patrick Ewing. the frozen envelope. But you're right. You're right. I'd also say this, though. I think that it's not just on the draft. It also places more emphasis on finding productive players on team-friendly contracts. And I think GMs are going to have to be a little bit more shrewd in terms of how they sign players, the deals they sign them to. Like, it becomes all the more valuable if you can get a player on a longer-term deal that ends up being team-friendly. So you sign a guy to a contract. Like, for example, this is just the first one off the top of my head. This isn't the typical situation. Typically, I'm thinking of like a role player who ends up becoming a starter or something like that. But you think about Steph Curry, where he had the ankle injuries, and so the Warriors got him on a cheaper contract, and then he wound up being a superstar. Situations like that, I think, are going to be more important that teams hit home runs on those, and that's where you get into like the Hinkie special and things like that. Do those contracts become all the more important? And then is the downside from the player's perspective that now there's more pressure to find these kind of bargain deals on general managers, and thus players get squeezed a little bit more in contract negotiations? Is that something that we see? Obviously, that's not something that's going to affect the top tier players, but the middle of the pack guys could end up feeling the squeeze a little bit on that.
Yeah, I think to an extent, I think those guys generally get squeezed anyway, right?
That's
because for the most part, money just goes to the main guys, right? And it's then that becomes like, all right, where are we kind of going from there? It's you pay the max guys, and then that's it, right? And then you're filling out with exceptions and minimums and everything else anyway. But yeah, I think you're right. I think any bargain deal you can sign, any player you can find an undrafted player, anything like that, the better off you're going to be now moving forward.
This Krios has a interesting take. Lakers are down 0-2 because Darvin Ham shaved his beard. Is that really what it is?
It could be.
That's all it is.
Right?
It's their powers or something.
Right? Isn't it hockey, right? No, they don't shave, right? They all grow playoff beards. Isn't that what happens in hockey? So yeah.
Did you happen to watch the quadruple overtime game?
No.
I flipped it. I was still up, and I flipped it on in the fourth overtime just for, just out of just being curious. Not that I've paid a ton of attention to the hockey playoffs or could tell you who's in it or anything like that, but I will stop and watch a game if it's on, and I'm flipping through because it's fun. Playoff hockey is exciting. I probably couldn't name 5 NHL players, but it's just something that's fun to flip on. And I saw it and I went, oh my gosh, like even I, as the most casual hockey observer, right? The lowest level of casual in terms of my hockey knowledge, even I could see how exhausted those guys were out there on the ice.
Yeah, anytime hockey goes deep like that in the playoffs, because there's no shootout or anything. Yeah, you can always see those guys wiped out. Playoff hockey is fun, but that was I finished the Nuggets Lakers game, watched Ted Lasso, and went to bed.
I'm behind a couple episodes on Ted Lasso. I have to get back to that, but I do have a flight next week, so I think I'm kind of saving them for that. Bert said, "Is there any way the Lakers can get anything for?" He means Bamba or Beasley. I was looking at that. It was a conversation I was having on Twitter. I think it was yesterday, that they both have team options. I don't know if the Lakers pick those up.
No. Bamba does not have it. Bamba is non-guaranteed.
Sorry, non-guaranteed. Yes,
so big difference.
But you know what I mean. Functionally, right? We're talking about the same kind of thing.
Yes,
but the bottom line, the Lakers get to decide.
Yeah.
Right, whether or not they want to keep them on that deal.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Lakers are going to be able to pick that up because of the new CBA and what you're going to have to pay Rui and Reeves and D'Angelo Russell and all of those. I think it might get a little tricky there. So a lot of people have been asking, well, could you trade those guys, say on draft night or something like that? I don't know which teams would be trading for them though.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And then if you're assuming you're taking back salary, like that's going to be salary that's going to put you closer to that super tax and everything. Yeah. So it gets a bit tricky.
The problem with Bamba is you'd have to guarantee a large chunk of his salary to even use him, because now that I know the season's not over, but from trade perspective, the season is over. So he now, because next year is fully non-guaranteed, he counts as zero in a trade. Yeah. The minute you're basically effectively the minute you're past the trade deadline, your next year's salary, if non-guaranteed, switches over to whatever the guaranteed amount is. In Bamba's case, that's zero. For Beasley, they'd have to pick up the team option first. You can't trade him as a pending free agent, so they'd have to pick it up. And now if I'm the other team that's trading for those guys, I'm like, what do I want 25 million
exactly
that salary on my books for? Like I'm I'm good. I'm going to move on. So, so that becomes the kind of the problem is, right. And I see somebody said, Lakers can use their salary with their pick. Lakers draft pick isn't good enough to offset. I mean, that's bad salary, for those two guys. So that's not enough.
The only way that's helpful is if you're taking back a long-term salary. That's bad, right?
Yep. Yeah. You'd have to take back somebody who that a team's like, yeah, we don't really want this guy at, 20 plus million, but yeah, if you want him, sure, you can have him, kind of go from there. So my guess is they just waive Bamba and move on. Maybe he comes back signed to a much lesser contract, like, probably in the minimum range. Maybe that's what happens. And then I think they're just going to pick up Beasley's option, because then you'll have him as, 15 million or whatever, as if nothing else, matching salary to put into a trade next season. But that's my guess is, just pick him up and move on, because I don't know that they're going to be able to keep Reeves and Hachimura and Lonnie Walker. Like that just all gets too expensive. So at that point, somebody's got to play minutes, right? And it's not like, Malik Beasley is pretty awful defensively, but at least in the regular season, you can get by throwing them out there for 15, 20 minutes a night to make shots.
Yeah. I wasn't factoring Lonnie Walker into my numbers there, but we'll see. We'll see what they ultimately wind up doing. Eric Olson, were the Lakers gassed? Do you think the altitude affected them? Whatever it was, it made them make some very poor decisions in the fourth quarter. just bizarre stuff.
They do say that, right? Those guys climb Everest, and then
right,
like they'll get that altitude sickness that makes them like strip off all their clothes, and then they fall off the mountain. So I don't know. Maybe it did affect the decision making.
Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, whatever it was. They fumbled on the 5 essentially, and Denver ran it all the way back. The Lakers just went, no thanks, we're not interested.
I think it's just kind of like I think Denver's good. Right.
Oh, absolutely. They're fantastic.
I think we're, just listening to some stuff today and watching some stuff, just full disclosure, why there's no show yesterday. I've been feeling under the weather for a couple of days. So I've been really catching up on a lot of podcasts and watching way more TV than I usually do during the day, which, God, those daytime sports shows are so bad.
Oh my gosh. It's difficult. It's a difficult
like everything is like, what's wrong with the Lakers from those shows? And it's like, Denver's good. Like that's what's wrong with the
See,
Lakers. Like,
watch
I
any of
mean,
those, and maybe that's why I'm so like when Denver is complaining about stuff, I'm like,
yeah,
"What are you talking about?" Because I don't
yeah,
watch any of
yeah.
those
They're
at
not
all or pay
talking
attention to
about.
them.
Yeah, they're talking about those guys because that's what happened after game one. The whole one, every single one of those shows, because I had a million people, hey, did you see this? Did you see that? And I'm like, no, because I didn't watch it after game one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I did watch some of it this morning, and yeah, it's bad. Like it's and that's the tough thing, right? Where it's like, I mean, what are we doing? Like it's not like let's give the Nuggets credit. It's not like they're playing against some crap team. Like Denver is good.
Oh, I've been beating that drum from the beginning of the series that this is a great Nuggets team, that they're actually a lot of fun to watch, that they're amazing.
Yeah.
They're a fantastic team, but yeah, weird stuff. Weird
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
We've got somebody compared this sports shows to WWE.
There's a lot.
Um,
That's why we say just hoops and no hot takes here on this
that's
show.
right. That's right. Here's a good question. Bert said, "Will Westbrook leave the Clippers?" Because the Clippers, especially with the new rules coming in, they're really limited to that veteran minimum
Yep.
to give him. He could go to the Suns or the Rockets with Harden. I mean, didn't we already see
Yeah, he's
Westbrook and
not
Harden
going.
together?
He's not going to play with Harden again. Like that.
No.
That already went sideways. In the
Yeah.
Suns, I don't know that he's going back to playing with KD either.
Yeah.
He may just take a minimum with the Clippers
He
because
could.
why? I mean,
He actually, it seemed like he fit there and it
mhm,
went fairly well there. And I would imagine he doesn't want to be seen as a minimum player, though. That's
yeah,
the tough part.
that's.
But he
But he's
doesn't have to leave
also
family then.
and this late in his career, it's not like I don't know, and it's not like he needs the money, right? He's made plenty of money, so. Yeah. I want to go. This one was asked a little, about 10 minutes
Yeah,
ago. Matthew Harrison, if you can scroll up and pull it up, but I'll read it.
sure.
Can the Pistons get their 24 first rounder back from the Knicks for trade
Oh, I
flexibility?
did see that.
So, what Matthew's talking about is the Pistons owe a protected pick to the Knicks, and it's got years of protection still to go on that pick. That pick's bounced around from a couple different teams, and now ultimately the Knicks own it. With the new cap penalties, do you think the Knicks would include the pick with Fournier to clean their books? It's possible. Here's the thing for the Knicks, though. The Knicks don't need to clear space. Like
Mm-mm.
they're doing pretty good. Like they've got the things in pretty good shape already. So I'm not so sure. The Knicks are in a spot where like they've got to start using picks to dump salary. Like they should be okay with where they're going already. So I don't know, and I'm also not sure. I don't get the sense Detroit's going to be in a hey, pay us to take on bad salary
Mhm.
spot. Again, just to go back to the Knicks, just because I wanted to confirm, 40 is in effect an expiring deal because it's a team option for next like 2 seasons from now, 24, 25. So he's moving into 18.8 million. Yeah, not good money, but the Knicks are fine. They should be okay. They've got enough wiggle room that they should be able to make it work. But yeah, if they decide, yeah, we got to dump Fournier's contract, I think they will. I think what's most likely to happen is they just don't pick up the option for Derrick Rose, and then that gives them the
Mhm.
wiggle room they need to re-sign Josh Hart and move forward.
Yeah. Jason says Knicks fan here, dumping Fournier doesn't do
Yeah,
anything for the
yeah,
Knicks. Now, I will say this, and I think I'm not saying Jason is wrong here, because I think Jason is correct. But I'll say this though, like in general, if you tell fans, "Hey, you're going to give up an asset in order to dump a player," they generally don't want to hear that, right?
yeah,
They don't want to do that. They don't want to lose a pick just to get a guy off of the roster, because what's that to them? Does it save it saves ownership a little bit of money, but that doesn't mean it. So fans tend to be negative about the idea of, hey, we need to dump a player. But nonetheless, I'm not saying that applies necessarily to this situation. I think Jason is right. It doesn't necessarily do
yep,
anything. Although, did you see Fournier's comments
yeah.
where
Eddie
he was
expects
just
that.
he expects to not be there next year? So
Yep.
that's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out.
Yeah, I think there's a chance that he gets moved. I just don't know that they're gonna throw a pick in to do it, but maybe. I mean, they could. I don't know. We'll see. I think. See, did we see that Lisa Salter should said she had never watched Jokic before this series? No, and I'm
It's
sure that
I'd
was
be
either said in jest or,
right.
I find that very very hard to believe.
Yes.
That one of the top sideline reporters out there is saying she never watched. Gabrielle Hendricks. This is a little weird. So
Okay.
said Keith, and then gave the Spock sign, the live long and prosper, an alien head and a basketball. Trevor, I went down an Area 51 rabbit hole the other day on YouTube.
Did you?
Yeah, I don't know. I was going,
What
it
did you
was
find?
after our Wednesday show. I went to pull the link to share it
Uh-huh.
to everybody, and there was this video that just popped up. It was from a couple years ago. It was about that whole storm Area 51 thing, and it was like, here's what really happened at the storming of Area 51. And
Uh-huh.
then the next thing I knew, like an hour and a half was gone, and I had just watched all these Area 51 videos.
That happens to me every now and then. I'll put something on, but you know what it is for me? It's music. It's
Uh,
music. Like I'll put on a music. I'll be like, it'll be this song gets Africa covered by this metal guy from Sweden or something like that, and I'll put it on, and the next thing you know, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I definitely want to listen to this one next. Oh, and then there's this, and next thing you know, it's like 2
yeah,
hours later, and I'm listening to November Rain or something like that, and yeah, that's
it's a
that's
classic though.
that's how I
That's a
wind
good
up.
one.
You know,
That's funny.
go wind up. Suddenly, I'm like, oh well, I was supposed to do like 3 things in this time, and instead I did nothing, which is
Yep.
fantastic.
Oh, I
Um,
like this one. Did you see it?
what?
From Mission 86 Performance?
Oh, okay. Here, I'll put it up right now. There it
Yeah.
is.
Might be
Uh,
premature, but are you willing to describe for those of us who don't follow the minutia of the NBA, the hypothetical process, step by step, of launching a new franchise here in Las Vegas, decision to opening night? So, all right. So we're gonna skip some parts of this, right? Because
sure.
obviously some of this is going to be back room and discussion and negotiation. Essentially, what happens is when the NBA announces they're going to expand, they're going to take bids from groups that are going to represent teams within cities, right? So, um, you know, the NBA could pull something different and come in and say, we are, we're just going to Las Vegas and Seattle, and we already have our groups picked out and go. But it's very unlikely. Generally, they'll accept bids from potential ownership groups, and then they go. So that'll be the first step. Then they'll pick an ownership group. Maybe they've already got it done.
Hmm.
And then what will happen is from there, they will then at some point in that process, they will announce the timeline for when that team will start play.
And they'll figure
Usually
out a
that will
team
be,
name and all that too.
yeah, in a team name, and that'll all come, right? It'll start out initially with, and we'll use Vegas because this is what his question was. Las Vegas, NBA franchise. And then a team name will come down the line and all those sorts of things. Maybe picked, maybe voted upon by the locals, we'll see. But then what will happen is the NBA will announce this team will start play. It'll probably be 2 years away from whenever it is. And what will happen with this is Bruce Barnes asked, so I got to chime in on this. How many cities would get teams before Edmonton? At least 15.
At least,
At
yeah.
least, yeah, definitely at least 15. Sorry.
I did
So
radio in Edmonton yesterday randomly.
did you? I've done
I
it
did.
there a couple times too. So back to this question on this, right? So now what will happen is there will be some agreed upon rules for the draft. The last couple times
Mhm.
teams have come in, they've been whether it was the first draft or multiple drafts, they limit those teams to say, where the lottery picks are now top 4, they may say top 5 is where you're going to pick 5th and 6th, and they'll hold some kind of drawing. And what they'll do is they'll say, I'm going to use Seattle as the other one. Las Vegas and Seattle are gonna pick, one of you gets the first pick in the expansion draft, one of you gets the higher pick in the NBA draft. They will operate almost always under a lower salary cap for those first season, maybe even 2 seasons. So they'll go from there. And then, do we know what Edmonton is? Yeah, it's a city in Canada. I know where Edmonton is. The Oilers play there. Come on now, my idiots. So they so now, then what you'll have is you'll have the expansion draft will happen. The expansion draft, there's a million rules on an expansion draft. Maybe this summer we'll do a mock
Yeah,
expansion draft or something.
we
just
should.
for fun, so we can really get in, so how people can see how it works. But essentially, every team under previous rules have said, they have said that every team can protect up to 8 players. The unprotected players who can't be free agents, those players can go into the expansion draft. Once you lose a player, that gets drafted, you can't lose more than one. You're out. So if like let's say the Lakers unprotected Mo Bamba, if it was right now,
Mhm.
somebody picked Mo Bamba, the Lakers could not then also lose another player
Exactly.
from that. So teams that are super deep sometimes lose pretty good players. Sometimes teams expose good players because they're hopeful the contract will get picked. Sometimes teams have offered, hey, pick this guy and we'll also give you our first round pick to get that
Mhm.
salary off the books. There's all sorts of things you can do with this. So then what happens from there? They'll have the regular draft. They'll slot in wherever they slot in. I'm going to say 5, 6 likely for now. And then free agency will come. They'll have free agency to run through and use whatever cap space they have. Generally, it's quite a bit because they'll be limited, and then they'll fill out their rosters the best they can, and then go into their first season of play. So probably from the time it's announced, I would say somewhere between 2 to 3 seasons
Yes.
before they'll actually start play from the time the NBA announced expansion.
It takes a lot just to get the infrastructure of a team put into place. Obviously, beyond even just the GM and the coach, but think about all of the logistics that are required in order to run an NBA game, like to host an NBA game at an arena. How many people you need involved in just that? It's a lot. There's a lot that you have to do, and then go into, you've got to do all the stuff with naming, all the legal issues with
Yep.
naming, making sure that nobody else has that name.
Yep.
That's a very simple thing, and that's
Yep.
like multiply that process out over 70 other things, and so many different things that the teams
Yep.
have to do to actually come into existence.
And if the
Um,
arenas aren't going to be ready for
yes,
them, where are you going to play in the interim time and all sorts of stuff with that? Yeah, there's a million other things, but basketball was, I think that covers the most of what obviously too, right? You got to hire a front office and scouts and everything else. So so we'll see. Yeah, Bruce asked too, how huge of an advantage would Mexico City
oh
have at
yeah,
home being, way higher in altitude? That's been talked. That's part of why they have the G League team there. Is there
yeah.
that's call it what it is. That's a feasibility, case study to see, could we put an NBA team in Mexico City and what might that look like?
It's something we talk about all the time whenever the US soccer teams go and play
Mhm.
there. When they
Yep.
go play at Azteca, it's like
Yep. They
it's legit.
almost always do a run through Denver, and then they're
Mhm.
usually there a week to 2 weeks ahead of time to train because of that. Now, obviously, in the course of an NBA schedule, you can do that, right? Because you're not you don't have that much time to go. But yeah, that is definitely true. That's something to consider.
Eric says, if you're the Pelicans GM, do you make Herb Jones and Trey Murphy untouchable? I don't think the word untouchable is the right one to use. Now, if
Yeah,
you're talking about because we were discussing the expansion draft, while this question came in, if that's what you mean,
yeah,
then yeah,
probably
obviously they're going to be on your list of players you're
sure.
protecting. But as
Yeah.
far as untouchable and trade talks this summer, like I wouldn't be going out of my way to try to move them. But if a deal for the right player is available, I wouldn't have those guys as untouchable. That's for sure.
Jones would be harder for me to trade than
Sure.
Murphy, and I like Trey Murphy quite a bit, but Jones is. I mean, this guy might win Defensive Player of the Year someday. He's
Oh
that good
yeah.
on that end of the
Uh,
floor. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, if it's the absolute right trade, yeah, you gotta think about it. I just wrote their off. Well, I didn't just write. It's been out for like a week now, but their off season preview is up on Spot Track if anybody wants to read. They're it's not great in New Orleans. They've a lot of money committed to very few players on that team.
if you like, there's very few players in the NBA that I would call untouchable.
Yeah, the
Right?
list is very
That's
small.
the word that gets me there. But I think the Pelicans will not go out of their way to move either one of those guys.
Yep. Yep.
My guy Senpai says, "How bad is the Jaw suspension going to be?" Miles Bridges somehow only got 30 games, while Aiton got 50 for PEDs. Seems like these are all over the place.
Hayden got 25, right? I
Yeah,
think it was 25. The
that's
Aiden
I'd have
PD
to go
one,
back and
though,
look.
that is specifically spelled out in the CBA. So that's why he got what he got. There's no wiggle room in that one. You test positive for certain banned substances, especially performance enhancing ones, and you get what you get for a suspension.
Mhm.
It doesn't go there. Miles Bridges, yeah, we've
But they were
talked a
counting the
lot about
year
that. That's
for
it.
it.
They
That's the
kind of
thing.
said he already missed a whole year and he didn't get paid for a whole year because he wasn't under any kind of contract. So, that one, I get it, right? I still know people who are like, that's still not enough, but so that is what it is. And then yeah, I think it's probably gonna be about 20 games.
Mhm.
I think he got 8 before with credit for time served. Some people felt that was lenient. It was more for me when Adam Silver did that interview with, I think it was with Malika Andrews. I know it was with ESPN. And you could just see, I mean, he was so upset, like, and so unhappy and disappointed with what had happened with Ja,
Mhm.
that I think that's gonna happen there. So um, you know if they expand, do they have to rebalance East West and divisions? They don't have to do that.
I think they will.
They probably will. They seem pretty married to the conference idea. So I think what happens is it'll probably, my guess is it'll be Memphis or Minnesota that gets moved east. A lot of people have pushed for Memphis over the years. Minnesota is further west than Memphis, but Minnesota is also closer to teams like Milwaukee and
Mhm.
Chicago, in some respects than Memphis is to anybody. So we'll see, but it'll be probably one of those two. It only needs to be one because you're adding two. It's just math, and people always argue this. If you had two, you got to move two. You'd be unbalanced again. So it's only
Mhm.
one's gonna go. So yeah, and that's assuming, right, that it's like Vegas and Seattle and two West Coast teams.
Right. Yeah, I would have to imagine. Let's assume that it is Vegas and Seattle. Then you just wind up picking one of Minnesota and Memphis, and one of those teams moves over,
Yep.
and off you go. And then
Yep.
that's it. I think that's the simple solution. Now, I do think though that there could be an opportunity to redraw some of the divisions within the
Sure.
conferences, and
Yeah.
maybe that would be the moment to do it when
Yep.
you're bringing in two new teams anyway. And that's obviously a bigger discussion that we can have.
Yep.
But um, other than that, I think you're right. I think in terms of the conferences, you just slide over either Minnesota or Memphis, and
Yep.
that's how you roll from there, and then you can figure out what you want to do with the divisions if you want to change them up or how you want to play that.
And it's important to note this is coming after, and we're talking like this is a done deal because I think we're both very much of the belief this is
Mhm.
coming. And Adam Silver has basically said so. Like, right, it was get the CBA and the TV contract done. The CBA is done, so now let's get the TV contract and go. So I think it's this is coming after in season tournament, after they've had years of the playing tournament, after they'll probably do continue to work on some form of schedule reform. So I think they'll this is a good chance to kind of, hey, let's go try some stuff, right? Let's try to,
Mhm.
experiment here a little bit. We may see them really, break things up with this, when they go that way.
All right. Who would call
Uh,
him right
let's
there?
do Jacques Bookers. Do you
Okay.
think Wembanyama
Oh, that's a good
overrated
one.
or underrated in his career fully healthy? All right, so I'm glad you put the fully healthy part in there
Yeah.
because if in fully healthy, I always assume that means reasonable health, right?
Reasonably healthy, right,
No one's going
as
to play
he's
all
not
game.
100% but
Yeah,
he doesn't have
but
he doesn't go
70
like
games,
He
he's
doesn't go
fine,
Greg
right?
Oden or something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Right, right.
Um, I think he's going to be great.
Yeah.
I just think he's going to be awesome. Like I think he's going to be absolutely incredible. So yeah, I'm gonna say, I guess I don't know which way that'll be. Like, I don't. Am I overrating him, or will he be underrated compared
Y
to what
I
other
think he's
people think? So
correctly rated
yeah,
if he stays out there. I mean, there's
yeah,
so, look, there are things that I'm not a scout, right? If I watch a game and a scout watches a game, they're gonna notice things in a player's game that I'm not necessarily going to, right? Because that's their job, and that's what they're focused on, and that's what they are the best at, right? So, I'm not always going to be right when I'm predicting who's gonna be good, who's gonna be who's not, right? But I do think I can do a decent job evaluating players, and when you look at Wembanyama out there on the floor, yeah, you could say he's not playing against NBA caliber competition, but he's doing things that no one else on the floor can do. That I mean, and that's even at the NBA level. He does stuff where you're like, well, damn, there's nobody else in the NBA
mhm,
that can do what he just did. He looks like when an adult is playing on like the kid's 7 foot rim or something like that. It is absolutely insane. So I think he's going to be very, very, very good. Again, health permitting. That's always the question mark with these guys. You never
yeah.
know when it's going to be, a Brandon Roy knee issue or a Greg Oden. Sorry, Blazers fans, man, picking on you here, but you never know when that's going to happen. But I think he's going to be fantastic. I think he's going to be fantastic. I think maybe there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve in the early going, but There's nothing that I see that says that this guy can't do a lot of what he's doing at the NBA level.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'm not, and from everybody I've talked to, not the slightest bit worried about that he's skinny. If anything, a lot of people are saying it's better that he's skinny at his size than being heavy because it's
Sure.
less pounding on his knees and his feet and all those things. The things that derailed, completely derailed Yao Ming's career, right? He was just too big. Like you can't play a sport that involves a lot of running and jumping and be that large and that heavy and just not have problems in your lower body. And Wembanyama is, he's no skinnier than a ton of other guys who come in the league and end up holding up just fine.
Brandon Ingram is still in the NBA.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Brandon Ingram, Kevin Durant when he first came in.
Oh my
right.
goodness.
And and those guys have worked a lot on their body. He's gonna work, he's gonna fill out over time, right? He'll add muscle, he's never gonna be, somebody where it's gonna be, oh my god, this guy's now throwing everybody around. But yeah, I think he's gonna be excellent. I really do. I think you're coming in with this kid is gonna be really, really good. And play really, really well. So yeah, I think I think we've got a chance on this guy, being something special with this. Somebody asked just real quick. I want to hit this one. Who was it? It was Two Nice Guys for You asked, have I done any research on Grant Nelson? Somebody pointed him out to me in season. So I've been huge on Drew Pember from UNC Asheville. Has been kind of my guy for a while that I was super excited about. Somebody's like, if you like him, check out Grant Nelson. He plays at North Dakota State. He can play. He's pretty big. I want to see him shoot it better from the outside and see if he can become kind of like a stretch five type guy, because he's not like a dominant monster big inside. But my guess is I think he's listed out at about 6'11" or 7 foot. He's probably closer to like 6'10". But he can play. He's got another year of eligibility left, so I hope he goes back to school. I don't think he has to come out this year. Go back out, and and Jason's pointing out terrible in combine scrimmages. Yeah, some guys just don't show up in that environment. It's not it's only a couple steps above pickup because they're not really running stuff. They're not, there's stuff. And I think somebody's got to be in the system, but I like him enough. But go back to school, really raise his draft profile, maybe get his team into the tournament and get more people watching and knowing his name, and then be out there. And the big thing to keep an eye on here is a lot of these guys out of the combine now, there's that third two-way spot. That is 30 more jobs in the league that didn't exist a year ago. So there's going to be a lot more guys that come out that go undrafted, but then are going to, with the idea of like, all right, I'm still going to come out because it seems like, I have a really great shot at a two-way spot. So
absolutely. It's going to be interesting to watch. And it's crazy. Like, the draft isn't that far away.
No, a little over a month.
Not that far. It's crazy.
Yeah. Trying to cover a playoff run in the midst of preparing for the draft, in the midst of writing 30 off-season previews and multiple free agent previews.
Easy.
I'm gonna pat myself on the back because I want people to go check it out. All of our free agency stuff is up on Spot Track. I did a little blurb about every single potential free agent in this free agent class. There's, that's like 200 something players. There's something about every single guy, even the two-way guys who barely played in the NBA. I went back, I watched film on them. I talked to team execs to get a little bit of a thought on those guys. So that's all out there, all ranked by position. All 5 positions. Stick with the traditional positions. We're not quite ready yet, but we've got all that stuff out there, and I think people can really, go out there and start getting prepped for free agency as you watch these games.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you guys give those a look, and let's go enjoy the weekend.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you for coming in on a later than usual front office Friday. Appreciate you all accommodating our schedules. But thank you again for coming in. Make sure, if you're not doing so already, you're subscribing to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. And of course, go follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.